hypertunement erodes boundaries. You become more focused on regulating others' perceptions than expressing internal truth. And here's the critical shift. Your identity slowly becomes externally referenced. Instead of asking, "What do I feel?" you ask, "What works here?" Over time, that question reshapes your self-concept. When you adapt across environments, your brain creates separate behavioral scripts. One for work, one for family, one for friends, one for authority figures, one for romantic partners. Each script is stored contextually in memory networks. The hippocampus ties identity expression to environmental cues. So different contexts trigger different versions of you. This is normal to some degree. But when the versions conflict dramatically, your brain struggles to maintain coherence. Coherence is psychologically stabilizing. It creates a sense of continuity. I am the same person across time and space. Without coherence, you begin to feel fragmented. Not fake, but split. And fragmentation is exhausting. Because integration requires energy. Every time you shift, you are reassembling yourself. Again, and again, and again. You might think you're just introverted. But introversion alone doesn't explain this level of fatigue. What drains you is not interaction. It's impression management. In psychology, impression management refers to the cognitive effort required to control how others perceive you. Every microadjustment consumes mental bandwidth. Monitoring tone, filtering opinions, calibrating humor, suppressing impulses. These processes rely heavily on the prefrontal cortex, a region that fatigues with sustained use. It's like running complex software constantly in the background. Even if no one sees the effort, your brain does. And when cognitive resources deplete, you experience what feels like social burnout. So you withdraw. Not because you dislike people, but because your nervous system associates people with effort. There's another layer. The default mode network DMN activates when you reflect on yourself. It plays a major role in autobiographical identity, your narrative of who you are. If your daily behavior consistently contradicts your internal state, the DMN receives conflicting data. It tries to integrate experiences into a stable story. But if the character changes constantly, the story becomes unstable. This can lead to subtle identity confusion. Who am I really? Not in a dramatic way. In a quiet way. A background uncertainty. Like static behind your thoughts. Here's the paradox. You crave connection. But connection feels like performance. So you isolate. Isolation brings relief. But prolonged isolation activates another threat system. Loneliness. The brain interprets chronic loneliness as danger too. So you oscillate. Move toward people. Feel exhausted. Move away. Feel empty. This cycle reinforces the belief. Maybe I just don't like people. But the truth is more nuanced. You don't hate people. You hate losing yourself around them. Tonight, notice one moment. Just one. When you adjust yourself mid-conversation. Maybe you laugh automatically. Maybe you soften an opinion. Maybe you pretend enthusiasm. Don't shame yourself. Just observe. This is called metacognitive awareness. When you observe a pattern consciously, activity in emotional reactivity circuits decreases. Observation creates space. And space is the beginning of choice. If rejection were impossible, if no one could withdraw love, if approval didn't determine belonging, who would you be? Don't rush the answer. You can be surrounded by people, laughed with, complimented, included, and still feel alone. Not physically alone, but internally untouched. Visual, person in a crowded room, sound muted, distant expression. It's confusing. Because by every external measure, you are socially successful. People respond positively to you. They enjoy your presence. So why does it feel hollow? Because they are responding to the performance. And your nervous system knows it. Psychology differentiates between two types of self-esteem: secure self-esteem and contingent self-esteem. Secure self-esteem is stable. It doesn't collapse when you make mistakes. Contingent self-esteem depends on outcomes. Approval, performance, achievement, likability. When you've spent years adjusting to maintain connection, your sense of worth slowly attaches itself to how well you perform socially. You don't feel valuable. You feel valuable when received well. That difference changes everything, because it means acceptance never fully lands. It hovers outside you. Your brain registers praise, but it doesn't integrate it. Why? Because praise directed at a mask does not confirm the self underneath. So instead of, "They like me," your nervous system whispers, "They like the version I showed them." That gap creates loneliness. When your external behavior doesn't match your internal state, your brain experiences something called incongruence. Carl Rogers, a humanistic psychologist, described incongruence as the tension between your real experience and your self-image. But neuroscience now gives us a deeper look. The brain seeks predictive stability. When you consistently present an adjusted self, the brain forms a self-schema around that presentation. But your emotional system still carries your authentic reactions underneath. This creates a split between cognitive self-concept and emotional reality. Over time, that split increases internal noise. You may feel restless, irritated, detached, without knowing why. It's not drama. It's misalignment. If authenticity is healthier, why does it feel dangerous? Because your nervous system learned early that authenticity risked connection. The amygdala doesn't track logic. It tracks pattern. If being fully expressive once led to rejection, that memory becomes encoded as threat, even if the current situation is safe. This is called implicit memory conditioning. Your body remembers what your conscious mind has forgotten. So when you consider speaking honestly, or disagreeing openly, or showing vulnerability, your heart rate subtly increases. Muscles tense. Thoughts race. The prefrontal cortex begins calculating damage control. Your system is not broken. It is protecting attachment. There is a psychological difference between being liked and being known. Being liked activates reward circuits, dopamine pathways. It feels good, briefly. But being known activates deeper bonding systems, oxytocin pathways. Oxytocin requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires reduced performance. If you're always adjusting, others never fully see your internal world. So bonding remains shallow, even in long-term relationships. This explains something painful. You can be surrounded by people and still feel unseen, because performance creates admiration, but authenticity creates intimacy. Let's map the cycle. You enter a social space. You adjust. You receive positive feedback. Your brain rewards you. You repeat the adjustment. This is reinforcement learning. The brain strengthens behaviors that produce reward. But here the hidden cost. Each successful performance strengthens the belief. "This is how I stay connected," and weakens the belief. "My unfiltered self is enough." So the loop tightens. You become skilled, polished, socially intelligent, and quietly alienated. Earlier in life, performance was automatic. You didn't question it. But as self-awareness increases with age, the gap becomes noticeable. The default mode network involved in self-reflection becomes more active in